If you're in the process of finding a property to house hack, you may be wondering, how do I go about financing it? In this video, I sit down with my good friend Carissa Dorado, who has 8 years of experience in the mortgage industry, and we go over in depth the topic of financing a house hack. We cover everything from applying for a mortgage to getting approved to the types of mortgages available today. Finally, as a bonus, we also include a free homebuyer's mortgage guide to help you navigate the process like a pro. Coming up. Hey guys, if we're just meeting, my name is Vitaly Volpov. I'm a practicing attorney, an active real estate investor, and a part owner of a real estate brokerage in upstate New York. On this channel, I discuss relevant legal concepts as well as best strategies and tips for real estate investing. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so that YouTube notifies you of all my future content. If you enjoy the content in this video, hit the like button and comment down below. Alright, so today I'm joined by my friend Carissa Dorado, who is a loan officer with a local loan company. So Carissa, thank you for coming on and welcome to the channel.
I appreciate it. This is so much fun. So I'm a mortgage loan officer, and I've been a mortgage loan officer for 8 years. I work for a company, Premium Mortgage, and we have offices all throughout New York State. So we have Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, and Albany. So that tends to be my footprint. And then prior to being a mortgage loan officer, I've been a landlord for the past 10 years, which is a whole nother ride of its own. Right. And then prior to that, I was a credit counselor at a local non-for-profit agency. And as being a credit counselor, I did a lot of work with credit, budget, student loans, but also foreclosures. So I actually learned the process backwards. I learned how to save somebody's house before I learned how to get them a house. So
that's great. Yeah.
Really backwards.
So I mean, it sounds like you have a lot of good experience, specifically in real estate industry and the mortgage industry. And so what this video is part 3 in my series on house hacking. And if you guys haven't seen parts 1 and 2, definitely check those out. I'll link to them in the description below. But basically those covered sort of what is a house hack, why it's so good, why I think it's one of the best strategies for first-time investors. And the second part was all about how to analyze a house hack listing. So the next natural point, of course, is to then talk about how to finance it once you do find a good deal and you've analyzed it correctly.
Yes. And as a first-time home buyer, you have a lot of different options. So unfortunately, I learned the hard way. My first home was my primary residence, and I bought a single-family home. And then after that, I bought investment property. So I had to adhere to the investment property standards, which is 25% down. So I bought a 3-unit with 25% down. But now knowing what I know, I really encourage anybody who has any interest in being a landlord to purchase their first home using the first-time home buyer programs that are attached to the multifamily home. It's the best way to go. It's the lowest down payment, and it's the least restrictive out of the program. So if you're thinking about it, definitely do it this way if you can.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. Good. So let's talk about if I am in the process, I'm looking for my first house hack. Let's say I don't own any properties yet, and maybe I'm renting, but I've started looking, I have some money saved up. Okay. You know, how do I make myself, financeable? Yeah. What do I need to do?
First thing I would do is as soon as you have an interest, reach out to me, because we can actually go through just even some rough information about you so we can see if it's going to cause any issues. So the first thing I ask is, how's your credit? A lot of people don't know how to answer that. Right. So my first thing that I tell people to do is go to Credit Karma. So Credit Karma is free. It's free for a reason, but at least it gives you your credit scores. It gives you 2 of your credit scores. Those are your personal credit scores. They're a little bit different than your mortgage credit score. So there's an auto, mortgage, your personal, and an insurance credit score. So there's different models across the board, but they're all going to be pretty similar. And then as soon as we know your credit score, I'm going to start asking questions about income. Are you hourly? Are you salary? Are you seasonal? You know, those type of bits of information are going to help me determine which paperwork you're going to want to set over to me when the time is right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So really it's all about the credit is the biggest one, and then assets as well. How much do we have to work with? And then income for your debt to income ratios.
Okay.
So those are the big guys.
Right.
And talking to me as soon as you have any kind of interest, we can vet through that and see if they're going to have any issues. So like a lot of times people will file their federal tax returns and misplace their W-2s. So
Okay.
that's really
That
important
happens
to
a lot?
have. It
Okay,
does.
all
It
right.
does. So it's really important to have federal tax returns, W-2s, recent pay stubs, and those
Okay.
type items. They're not necessarily required for the pre-approval process.
Right.
But if I start asking some questions and you don't know the answers, we're going to need to start like, okay, let's find the answers.
Gotcha.
Making
Okay.
sure you have those available.
Makes sense. So,
Yeah.
so let's start with the credit score. What's
Sure.
an average or, minimum, I guess,
Yeah.
credit score for most of the loan programs you have?
So the minimum credit score for the loan programs is around 620. The
Okay.
average individual's credit score is around like a 680, give or take a little bit. So some people are going to be a little lower, and that's going to be more of your government-backed mortgage. So that's going to be your FHA mortgages. They can go down to the 320. I do have a SONYMA first-time homebuyers program, so it's very specific to New York State, but that allows you to get in with a lower credit or no credit. So they have a program that's alternative credit. So let's say you haven't used credit, you don't
Right.
have a credit score.
Right.
So in that situation, we can just look at credit references. So like your rent, gym, and life insurance, and just something that you've paid on time for the past 18 months, and you can provide proof. We'll use that towards your alternative credit, and we'll waive the credit score requirement.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
How do I provide proof if I had to do that?
Yeah, so I usually ask for bank statements.
Okay.
Yeah, so I
Okay.
just ask for the last 18 months worth of bank statements. You
Gotcha.
tell me what day such item was drafted, and then I just use a search feature to find it.
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't come through your bank statements,
Right.
I promise. It's
Makes
none
sense.
of my business.
Okay. Well, that's all right. I mean, you are a mortgage officer, so.
Yeah.
So what about assets? You
Yeah.
mentioned having sufficient assets.
Yeah.
What are we talking about there?
Yeah, so assets, really looking at what's in the bank. So cash is bad. Cash during the mortgage process, if you're depositing cash in your bank account, usually that's red flags. So I'm going to ask about, okay, you have money. Where is your money? Is it in a bank account, savings, stocks, IRAs, or is it going to be cash under your mattress?
Okay.
So cash under the mattress is not so good, but the
Right.
other items are great.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that's very helpful. So I'll ask about, specifics. How much do you have in your bank account? Is anybody willing to gift you any money? Are you going to be doing a loan out of your 401k? Or are you just doing a withdrawal? And different things like that are the typical places that individuals will find assets for their purchase.
Gotcha. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
Okay.
very common. Gifting.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about, let's say a concrete example, right?
Sure.
Let's say I'm looking at a house, maybe it's a 3-family or,
Okay.
3-unit property
Yeah.
for $100,000 for
Yeah.
easy math, right?
Okay.
So how much money do I need to have in the bank and my assets, all those things,
Yeah.
or how do I figure that out? What's the right way to do
So
it?
huge wild card with that, property taxes. I would need to know how much are your property taxes, because property taxes are going to drive your mortgage payment, so your debt to income ratio,
Right.
but they're also going to drive your closing costs. So if you buy a $100,000 house, your property taxes could be $6,000. That's a lot of money per month. Or it could be like $2,500, $2,400 for some easy math. That's going to be much less. So your mortgage payment's going to be much less, and your closing costs are going to
Okay.
be much
Okay.
less. So, but if I was just going to give you some general examples, let's say you're going to do an FHA, I probably want to see about $10,000, $12,000 in a bank account.
Okay.
And if you don't have access to that much money, though, that's okay, because we can look at something called Seller's Concessions. That's actually, to me, it's one of the most complicated pieces of a mortgage transaction if we have to use it.
Yep.
But it's where you finance some of your closing costs into your mortgage. So working off from the same $100,000 purchase price, underneath an FHA mortgage program, you can use 6%. It's actually the biggest percentage. The government-backed mortgages are the biggest percentage, and so
Okay.
that's 6. So if you're going to offer net to seller 100,000, you can actually do that 106. So your contract purchase price would be 106,
Right.
and then from there we take that $6,000 and we'd actually just back it right off from your closing costs.
Right.
So if I said before your closing costs were 10,
Right.
now all of a sudden they're 4,000. It could just be your down payment,
Right.
like that. The only thing left for you to come to closing
Yeah.
is your down payment, which is beautiful.
Very nice. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a great way to do it.
Yeah, and in my experience, it depends obviously on, whether the seller is happy with the net to seller price, whether or not
Yeah.
they'll agree to the seller's concessions.
good
But
point.
we've done it a lot. A lot of our agents in the brokerage have used seller's concessions. I've used seller's concessions on multiple deals myself.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely something that's part of the industry. It's definitely something that, you can get. And with a program like FHA,
Yeah.
you definitely have an advantage there, right?
Yep, it's very industry standard. Now, the only time we'll see it potentially coming up with an issue is multi-offer situations or just a competitive market in general. Multi-offer situation, a seller tends to not like to see the seller's concessions. That, that's something to throw out there. Also, FHA tends to be a little less popular when we're going into a multi-offer situation, and that tends to be more just because of the appraisal process. They're going to be a little bit more rigorous during the appraisal process. So that's going to be looking for peeling paint, handrails, and anytime there's more than 3 steps, and making sure that there's no plumbing, leaking pipes, or anything like that. But other than that, it's actually pretty much the same.
Right. Okay.
So the appraisal process can be a little bit of a turnoff to a seller, though.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So, but, I will talk about this too, but I think there's also another program that FHA offers, the 203K program, that if your property does have a lot of deferred maintenance or needs some repairs, you can take advantage of that too, right?
Yep. 203Ks are very nice in those regards, and we always look at the after value. So after the repairs are made, we're going to be looking at the after value cost and making sure that makes sense. But it's a great way to put your expenses of the repair costs and the construction right into your loan amount and pull that out over the course of the 30 years rather than paying for it as a one-time upfront. Yeah, so it's nice. And then the other program that does allow for those type of rehab programs is the SONYMA. So SONYMA has a Remodel New York program, which is wonderful, and that's actually, it's a little less rigorous than the FHA 203K. Both of them, you're most likely to have a consultant who's going to walk you through this process. It's very confusing. Contractors, you are going to either love them or hate them by the time you're done, so we want to make sure we find somebody that answers their phone. And we also just want to make sure that whatever contractor you go through, we're going to vet them. So we're just going to check to make sure they have their insurance, and if any type of repairs that they're making require licensing through their local municipality, we're going to check to make sure they have their license for that. So that's the plumbing, the electrical. So it can be a headache, but it can be a great way to buy a distressed property and flip it and make it beautiful and get some nice rents from it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it can be very handy. And I'm a big fan of the SONYMA and the SONYMA Neighborhood Revitalization Program. They have as well, and then they also have remodel programs. So there are programs out there. There potentially could be free money out there too. So call.
Makes sense, yeah.
Call.
Makes a lot of sense. But so with the 203K, let's say, I go in, I have a contractor, they figure out, okay, they give me an estimate, it's going to cost $20,000 to do X, Y, or Z, right? How do I get the money? What do I do? I take that estimate to you, to the bank?
So we would actually take your sales contract and we would take the estimate, we would pair them together, and we would actually bring in the consultant. The consultants would confirm, yes, it actually does make sense to take this $100,000 home, this $20,000 worth of repair. It's probably going to be worth $135,000 or $140,000 by the time we're done. And so we run all of our numbers based off from that information. And then for us, after close, that's when you can start doing the work. So you'll have your contractor lined up, and then the consultant is actually going to go in and make sure all the work has been complete. And they're going to issue a check, and that check is going to be written out to the borrower and to the contractor. The borrower, the mortgage borrower, will sign it and then turn that over to the contractor for payment. So contractor has to be okay with not getting paid for a while, but they will get their money.
Yes. Okay. And so obviously it takes, certain contractors will be doing that. Some might not be interested in doing that. Correct.
Yeah. Most of the time you just, your realtor tends to know a consultant or tends to know contractors that'll work well in this situation. There tends to be a small, tight-knit community. So
makes sense. Okay. So, and then one of the other things I wanted to ask you about is, kind of jumping back to the starting out the process where, I applied, right? Let's say I applied. You're in the process of reviewing. Your underwriter's reviewing my loan. Are there certain things that I should be cautious about doing or not doing?
Everything.
Okay, all right. So tell me, what can't I do?
I want you to call me before you sneeze, please. Just make sure it's okay. So really, it's everything. So we are the CSI of your finances. If you do anything, I need to know about it. So the biggest thing that I see, though, is cash deposits. So I already mentioned cash is bad in that I can't trace it. I don't know where it came from. And that's going to cause a lot of red flags with even just your banking institution, but also as the mortgage company. Now, if you're a waitress and it just is in line with what you normally do, that's different. But, you as somebody who works a W-2 job, all of a sudden depositing 10 grand, cash in the bank account is going to cause issues. So the biggest thing is cash. And I always ask people, if you know that we have a cash issue, let me know. We will sort this out well ahead of a mortgage application so we can make sure that's good. The other thing that I tend to see during a mortgage application is taking out new credit. So you go to buy your house and all of a sudden we need new appliances, we need new furnace, we need new couch, stuff like that. I'll tend to see people open up credit cards.
Right.
We monitor your credit all the way up until closing. We will find out about it. I could tell you horror stories about individuals getting new cars during this process. 2 new credit cards were most recently happened to us, and it caused a delay in the financing. It didn't necessarily cause it to become rejected, but if it gets too crazy, it really could impact the loan application to the point where it was rejected. So not adding to your existing credit. Another thing to make mention is let's say you work for your current employer, but you switch positions. And you went from hourly to commission based. That is not good. We need to know where you are, and if all of a sudden you switch over to commission, you don't have a 2-year history of it.
Because it's a higher risk now, right? Because I may or may not succeed in my commission position.
Yeah, we wish you the best of luck off to the side over there.
Sure, right. Makes sense.
It's going to cause issues with your mortgage application. So that tends to be some of the bigger ones. Also gifting. We do see a lot of gifting, which is very common. A lot of people's parents would like to gift them money during the mortgage process, but making sure it happens in the right way. The donor actually has to prove that they had the money. So let's say you want to gift me $10,000 during this mortgage process. I accept a check from you, and then I actually need a copy of your bank statement to prove you had the 10 grand and making sure that 10 grand was sitting there. You didn't all of a sudden just put 10 grand cash in your bank account as the donor. Because that'll cause issues.
Interesting.
So, yeah, cash tends to be a problem, and just making sure there's some proper steps. I actually have a YouTube video myself that walks you through the proper gifting steps.
Send me on. So we're going to link that YouTube video up in the description as well. So you know, we'll definitely have you guys check that out. So what about if I'm a 1099 contractor, right? How does that work? What do I need to do for that?
So that's actually one of the reasons why I'd want you to call me as soon as you are even considering going through the mortgage process, because I'm going to ask for the last 2-year federal tax returns. So are you going to be an LLC, an S Corp? Am I going to have to see your K-1s? So how much documentation am I going to need? As a business owner, you really are going to have to prove yourself. I have to make sure you've been in business for the past 2 years. I have to make sure the income is stable. I most likely am actually going to have to see a profit and loss statement as well, too. And if you wanted to use that new income off from your profit and loss, it actually have to be audited. And those can be expensive. So you're probably just going to want to stick to the W-2s or the federal tax returns for the past 2 years.
What is the audit? What does that look like? Who does the audit?
The audit tends to be the individual that does the tax returns. So it tends to be an accountant. An accountant. It tends to not be the cheapest thing. So we just like to use the federal tax returns and then just a general profit and loss statement. But then if you wanted to use the higher income, if there was a really generous year so far, we would actually have to have the profit and loss P&L audited. That's a couple bucks.
Makes sense. Okay. So let's turn to just some of the programs that are available in New York as well as nationally.
So just to start with the government-based programs, we already talked about FHA. So FHA is up to 4-unit property with only 3.5% down.
That's great.
With all the programs we're talking about, you can actually use rental income to help towards the debt-to-income ratio and the qualification piece of it. And we just have to adhere to what the appraiser says is the monthly rent for that property. So they're actually going to dictate that amount. But let's say you find a double and you're going to occupy the bigger of the units. We're always going to have to say that you occupy the bigger of the 2 units. And then we can use 75% of the stated value for the other unit. So let's say it's $1,000. I can use $750 in your mortgage application towards your income.
So $750 per month, $1,000 in rent per month.
So we can use 75% of the appraised, what the appraiser says the fair market value of the rent is. So it's a great way to get numbers to come together if we're just struggling to get numbers to come together. And FHA also has the most generous debt to income ratio. So we've seen some high debt to income ratios that might not work with other programs. So they tend to be good for that. And then also, as we talked about the seller's concessions, they actually have the max at the 6%. So if you're struggling with assets, we'll put borrowers in this program just for the asset piece of it through the seller's concessions. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's a great program for a lot of different purposes. The other program...
Carissa, before you jump to the other one, I do want to stop and just break down a little bit the debt to income ratio, because some people might not necessarily know this if they're new to the game. What exactly is that, and what do they need to know?
So fancy terms, it's the capacity. So monthly income, so we figure out your monthly income based off from the stated income given. And then we're going to use a ratio. A standard ratio we'll tend to see is 45%. And that's
Okay.
usually the conventional ratio. So I take your monthly income, multiply out by 45%, and that leftover dollar amount is what I have to work for with your current monthly debt load plus your future mortgage payment.
Okay.
So I have to take like your auto loans, your credit cards, your student loan monthly payments, include that in that 45%, and then whatever number's left over is the number that I use for mortgage pre-approval purposes.
Okay,
So
I
hopefully
see.
it's a nice big dollar amount.
Right. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, so
Okay.
FHA does allow for the most generous debt to income ratios, especially with a good credit score.
And you
So
said that was 45%?
45% is more of the industry standard.
Okay.
FHA can go up higher.
Okay.
Yeah, so if we're just kind of not quite sure what direction to go, I've actually done some dual pre-approvals where I've had somebody
Mm-hmm.
pre-approved underneath FHA and then also underneath like conventional, for an example. And it might just come down to the house or a multi-offer situation. So we tend to see that. So the other government-backed mortgage is a VA. So a veteran could potentially use their VA benefits to buy up to a 4-unit property with 0% down and no private mortgage insurance. It is huge. If any veterans out there have any interest in being a landlord,
Right.
this is the program.
Yeah.
4 units.
It's almost no money down, basically, right?
Yeah, 0 down. And just your closing costs,
Yep.
which you can also do seller's concessions
Right.
to finance your closing costs. So you can do a 0 down on a 4-unit property and really just, not have that much
Yeah.
money out of pocket and just bring the rent in each month. Yeah. So
We know a couple of vets, don't we? That
Yeah.
we're trying to get them to do this, but hey,
we're going to try our hardest. So this is a great opportunity. So the other program I wanted to mention was the SONYMA mortgage program. That is for first-time home buyers specific to New York State residents. And you can get a 2-unit property for 5% down and up to a 4-unit property for as little as 10% down. SONYMA does have the lower interest rate, so they've got great rates and great private mortgage insurance if you're not putting the 20% down. And they do have some of the other rehab programs that go with it too. So it really is a great program. It's one of my favorites. And they also have the alternative credit. And the alternative credit.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So the alternative credit is if for somebody who doesn't have a credit score at all, or if they just don't have enough credit to get them to that 620 requirement, we can use alternative credit. So bills that you've paid in the past 18 months that you've paid on time that you could provide documentation of. So it might be like a gym membership, let's say a car insurance, and then cell phone bill. As long as they're in your name and you can provide me your bank statements proving that you've been making that payment on time each month, I can actually give you credit for those and wipe out the credit requirement. You still have to adhere to the normal debt to income ratio that SONYMA has, but it's a great program for individuals who just choose to stay away from credit.
Yeah.
And nothing wrong with
What
that.
about if the person wants to use maybe their rent that they've been paying to a landlord? Can they do that to prove that they have the additional credit?
Yeah, that actually is a big one that we see most common. And for landlords, even if you've moved, so let's say in the past 18 months you were at one place for 12 months and then you just moved into your new place 6 months ago, I can actually combine them together. And then just canceled checks is actually the easiest. Don't even bring the landlord in.
Right. Yeah.
We don't want to tip them off.
No.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Depends on if your landlord's nice or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the canceled checks is perfect way to prove. Yeah. So that tends to be our most common.
Makes sense. And that was, you said, for first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
But is that just truly for I've never owned a home and that's the only way I can qualify for that?
So first-time home buyer, actually, the definition is different. It's have you owned a home in the past 3 years. And it's specific to home. You can own land. I've done first-time home buyer programs for individuals who've owned hunting land.
Right.
Yeah, so that doesn't disqualify you. It's, first-time home buyer. Have you owned a home? Has your name been on a title or a deed?
Gotcha.
That's the first-time home buyer requirement.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of people actually don't know they're first-time home buyers again. So
Right,
it's
exactly.
like, you have all these options
You're a
now.
first-time home buyer again, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Makes
Why
sense.
not do it twice?
Yeah.
So those are the programs that I like. And then we do have just the regular vanilla conventional program, but it also has another layer to it, and that's the Home Ready and Home Possible program. I'm a really big fan of the Home Possible program First time home buyer, you can go up to a 4-unit property with a little 5% down. Now you do have to have a better credit score. You have to have a 720 or higher.
Right, okay.
But it's a great program, but it is income capped. So as soon as somebody goes under sales contract, even if I just approve them underneath another program, I'm going to check them for home ready and home possible.
Okay.
And the income is only the stated income on the mortgage application. So let's say you have a salary and you're also making commission, and your commission bumps you over the income cap for the home ready or the home possible. If I'm only using your base income and that's under the income threshold, we're okay.
Okay.
So same thing for married individuals. If I'm only including you on your mortgage
Right.
application, it does not matter how much money your wife makes for the income
I
cap.
see.
And that's very specific to this program though, because SONYMA doesn't have this. The SONYMA is going to be a household income
Gotcha,
cap. Yeah.
gotcha. So where are these caps listed? How do you find them, or can a
Yeah, so
person
I
find
would
them?
say reach out to me
To you,
directly,
okay.
but I would be more than happy, just do a quick Google search and you'll be able to come up with it. Some of them are an example of so very specific to the address. So home ready and home possible, if you do a search for the address lookup, it'll actually tell you specifically to that neighborhood. And there are some neighborhoods where there is no income cap. So a distressed area, they might have actually pulled the income cap and
I
it
see.
doesn't matter. So
Okay.
I always check.
Right.
You just never know of the other programs that might be alluring in the background.
Gotcha,
You can
gotcha.
pounce on.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
great programs.
very good. So now, some of these have limits as far as number of units.
Only,
they-
4 units.
Okay.
Anything over 4, you're actually going to be looking at commercial.
Okay.
Yeah. So
What-
residential.
What about, I think at least one of those programs that you have here only allows you to finance single-family homes. Is that right?
That is correct. So underneath the USDA. So USDA is rural. So if you're
Okay.
looking at a rural home, and then also there's an income cap on that, but that's a little bit higher, but you can also find that online. And then with that, you can only have a single family home. But
Gotcha.
the single family homes can be very lucrative. So let's say you want to live in your single family home, you've been in there, and you know that you're going to be moving to your next family or the next house.
Right.
Your single family home, stay there for 2 years, and then maybe you decide later to rent it out. That
Gotcha.
could be an option.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you could get some great rents for single family
Yeah.
homes.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, so that's a nice program. The other thing I just wanted to make mention
Yeah.
real quick was FHA. Let's say you currently own an FHA property right now, and
Mm-hmm.
we're trying to get you into another property. You cannot have 2 FHA mortgages at
Okay.
the same time.
Right.
Yeah, so just something to throw out there too.
Okay.
So use it once.
Right.
Stick
right.
with it.
Well, can you do a refinance before you get the
Yes,
next
you
property?
can. Yep, you can actually do refinance over to conventional, or you could do a conventional cash out refinance and actually use some of that money towards your down payment closing costs, or just buy
Yeah.
your next house cash outright
Makes
and mortgage
sense.
it later.
Yeah.
You could mortgage it within the first 6 months after you purchase it as a rental property, essentially underneath that scenario, and get a mortgage on it for the value that you purchased it at. Or if you want to wait 6 months, do some renovations, you can actually do the fair market value.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so you can always do a refinance later if you do buy cash.
Yeah. Very cool. Very
Yeah,
cool.
lots of options.
Okay. All right. Well, that all sounds great.
Yeah.
I think, we've covered a lot of information. I know we're throwing a lot at you guys. What we do have, Carissa actually has put together a home buyer's mortgage guide. And what I'll do is I'll link it in the description below. Carissa will link it on her YouTube channel as well so that you guys can check it out. But it contains all this information and more. And it actually has a breakdown of all the, nitty gritty that we talked about. There are a lot of terms, obviously. There are a lot of percentages and numbers and all of that stuff. So it's hard to digest all in the quick, short little video like this. But if you guys do have questions, definitely refer to the guide. And Carissa's information will be in the guide as well as in the description below. So you guys can reach out to her anytime. If you're looking to finance at home in New York State, she's your go-to. So definitely reach out to her. And, Carissa, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the
Awesome.
channel.
Thanks so much for
definitely,
having me.
It's definitely a pleasure. Yeah.
Yes,
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah. So guys, if you enjoyed the video, definitely hit that like button, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Take care and have a good day.
Bye.